people would joke to me a little bit and be like, I'm not feeling very good today, sir. I don't think I can go to work or school. And they would joke about it because, well, Nixon and some of the other boys or some of the other people were doing this whole thing where they were covering up the winds. They're saying it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, because they were trying to get radioactive stuff or something. It's before then, actually. Like I said, I was mitigating everything and dealing with everything, and also doing the stuff like that. And Nixon and JFK and the others, and also Harlem and Wolf, Harlem and Dent, or Harlem and Wolf, were doing the cover up and considering it a big joke, as they would put an ad in the paper and basically ask people to come to work at the pile, and like I say, you'll see Nixon actually doing quite a bit of stuff back in the day. Back between 1930 and 1960, he would do quite a bit of acting and quite a bit of new commercials. I don't know. They covered it all up. I don't know why. But basically, they were getting people to come work at the pile, and they needed people. They put an ad in the paper, and there's all kinds of stuff for working at the pile or whatever. And basically, they were refining uranium, and they needed an endless supply of workers, of course, because all their workers were dying within, well, a few weeks, whatever. And meanwhile, on one side of the whole island, you had basically this thing of like over 5,000 people, pretty much, that were basically sick and bleeding from their eyes and dying. And even some of them would some of the people were like, Jesus, John, they're bleeding from their eyes, John McCain. Or something like that. I'm not exactly sure if it was Ebola or what it was exactly, but pretty much, I don't know. They're bleeding from several different places, but basically a radiation sickness. It wasn't actually Ebola because we checked, and it was actually an absence of bacteria or something like that, or only one kind of bacteria. Anyway, I'm not exactly sure, but basically there's 5,000 people laid up in cots, in tents from the workers at Windscale, basically. Like I said, I didn't know about this at the time until later on. You would think that it was a war, and somebody was saying, you would think that was a war or something. There's all those people, because all the people were basically, and there were workers that worked on the pile, or worked at the pile or at the site, until they couldn't work anymore, and then they literally, until they collapsed, basically, and then some new people would come in, pick them up, put them on a stretcher, and then walk out, and carry them away, and carry them to basically die in bed, or in a cot in these places. But they wouldn't even bother feeding them or giving them water or nothing. They would just leave them there because they're dead. They're dead. Once they can't stand up or hold themselves up, they're basically dead, and pretty much will die in a couple days. Basically, they're having them work at the site and work there at Windscale as long as they can possibly stand on their feet. We need those men to work. Nixon, you would hear Nixon or JFK basically saying. Pretty much. It's Harlem and Wolf or whatever. They were trying to get one for the dipper, or for whatever. Dipper, I guess, as in man who dips inside a woman, whatever. I don't really know. Like I said, 1920 to 1950 or so, there are a lot of things that were very, very wrong. And basically Nixon had, he was doing like general no regard, as in he doesn't give a fuck. And basically laughing, ha 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 ha, at everyone, along with some black people. Pretty much, while other British and other people were basically going to work, miners or whatever were going to work pretty much at this Windscale, or young people were going to work. And I think they would rape them and have sex with them and then put them to work at the pile or something like that. And they had this other town nearby that really had nothing to do with the pile, that their people would go and mess around in and stuff like that. And they'd be like, and they would notice that they couldn't take pictures of each other, like, because they would pose for photographs and stuff like that, and click, and what they saw was basically, because they were using because they didn't have what's called. Anyway, the images never came out. There were pictures of it. You can't take a picture of a radioactive person. It won't come out right, or something like that. Anyway, all lenses, though, have some sort of whatever. Anyway, I don't really know exactly all that much about it. I just know about what I was told, what I knew about it, basically, that the pictures weren't right. Because, like I say, everyone died. Everyone who was ever there died. Everyone who had anything to do with it died. or was killed by somebody else. Nixon made sure that nobody talked, that nobody knew anything. And if they did know anything, they either died of radiation poisoning or died of some other poisoning or just died. So, I mean, it was a complete and total cover-up. So anyway, that was Windscale. And like I say, later on, they were trucking it out. And, you know, anyway, like I say, I know because they had to use 40-foot poles. You know, the workers would die in days if they stood next to the pile. Because literally it was just a pile of radioactive material that they were mixing around and getting to get whatever. And then some other people would try and kind of sift out the beads. They had a sifter or something. And they'd bring in other people that would go and sift for half an hour, and then they would leave. And they'd come back and go and sift for half an hour. And they'd go and leave, looking for these little BBs of radioactive material or something like that. There are photographs or some things, or people accounts of basically what happened at Windscale. Like I say, it's been covered up. Everything's been removed. And basically it's John McCain, Nixon, and all the others. Once we get into power, we have to keep power. Anyway, they were trying to get a jump on LS and basically me. Pretty much. And they were doing it through Windscale and the nuclear energy. Because nuclear power was the future. Actually, I think hydropower is quite efficient and good itself, actually. Although uranium, depleted uranium, actually is a very hard metal and very useful in its own right. That it's close to titanium or titanium-like. Anyway, I don't really know exactly all that much about it, but it's also very, very, I mean, it's relatively safe, I guess they say. Like, I wouldn't even get near uranium, honestly. Even if they say it's safe, because back in Egypt, they used to do titanium stuff all the time. I mean, uranium stuff all the time. People would wear these uranium necklaces all the time in Egypt. They would wear uranium. I mean, in ancient Egypt, they used to have uranium necklaces that would be warm, keep you warm. Ah, yes. Also kill you. Although I suppose if you're going to rape a girl or whatever, I don't know. I guess give her one of these necklaces after you've raped her and tortured her and all that other stuff, and then just give her one of these necklaces and forget about her. It's something you give someone that you don't care about. Here you go. Have a necklace. Have a medal. I did that a couple times myself. I was like, there were a couple people, and basically they were a problem, and I was like, you know what? Have a medal. And so I made sure that these people got commemorative medals. They were very bad people, though. Don't worry. And it's warm to the touch. Oh, don't open it here. Put it on at home. Anyway, yeah. We did do that somewhat. Because there are some people... I was trying to get Nixon, too. Nixon would be like, they're coming after us, man. Like, yeah, I know, I am. I was. Anyway, so yeah, Windscale, and there's a lot of death and destruction, and basically, Papa and everybody, he wanted to remove as many white people as he possibly could before they buried the knife or buried the hatchet and basically went full auto, basically. But, well, us Irish and us Germans, and we don't die so easily. So, anyway... They nuked us like crazy. They, basically, pretty much Windscale and everything they got an aircraft, they set it up all just fine, and then they basically hit 3 cities, and then, or some point. I don't know if it was actually Windscale. Windscale, this was in the beginning days of Windscale. What Windscale became afterwards is something else. But before, in the old days, they basically hit 5 or 6 cities, and then they started carpet bombing indiscriminately. And basically were killing off as many as they possibly could. Anyway, we fought our way through it. Back. I'd always think of myself as a little child with a flag going back. Because, I came down hard. Really and it's a close one, as they say.